She crossed the ultimate line, not just betrayal, but ambition-fueled adultery. My wife thought sleeping with her boss would get her ahead. She didn't expect I'd find out, and when I did, I didn't confront her, I destroyed everything they built, together. Since the evening of our high school graduation, we have been together. I kissed Alice for the first time and fell deeply in love with her. I simply smile when people inquire about how long we've been dating. It is now a life, not just a number. Weekends became leases, then rings, then forever, and after 6 years of marriage, the first dates became dates. I sometimes find myself thinking, gosh, how did I get so lucky, as I look at her across the kitchen. Yes, we did have our arguments. On some evenings, we went to bed in rage. Even though we didn't talk some mornings, we always managed to get back on track. The thing about us was that, we struggled, we faltered, but we never gave up. Alice was home because Alice was home. From the start, we had aspirations of becoming parents, not in the first year, not immediately. But eventually, it turned into a sacred bond between us. We made an effort, sometimes out of fear and sometimes with hope, but nothing has happened yet. However, you should be aware of another aspect of me. A topic I don't discuss much. Hell was my reality 7 years ago. May 2011, Joplin, Missouri. That evening, I was meant to be at my parents' house. However, I made the last-minute decision to crash at Kyle's, which resulted in a late and foolish poker night. I awoke the following morning to sirens and dozens of unanswered calls. There was nothing when I arrived at our street. My childhood home is gone, torn apart from the foundation. The neighbors are no different. The same porch swing that I had pushed my niece onto was wrapped like a ribbon around a light pole. The entire block appeared to be at war. They spent days trying to identify everyone. I don't even recall the funeral. You're lucky that you survived, they say. However, I felt like a ghost rather than fortunate. I've never breathed the same way or slept soundly since that day. Abrupt changes in the weather make me cringe. I can't even close a window without feeling like I'm closing myself in a coffin, and I can't stand strong winds. PTSD, the therapist said. I was given medication by doctors. But nothing really stopped it. Until I opened ChatGPT one evening a year ago. It was meant to be humorous. An AI therapist is better at listening than your ex, according to a video I saw online. I typed, I don't sleep, and when I close my eyes, I see storms. Tell me more, it said. I only needed that. I didn't want Alice to worry, so I didn't tell her at first. However, it quickly became a habit. I would continue to type after she went to bed. There were nights when I talked only about the weather, and other nights when I talked about fear and how difficult it was to breathe when it got too quiet. I told her things that I was not allowed to say aloud to Alice or to anybody else. And it never rolled its eyes or interrupted. It helped, though I'm not sure if that drives me crazy. I brought up Alice one evening. As usual, I typed it into the chat window and said something straightforward. Lately, she has become somewhat disengaged from the whole baby thing. She was scheduling blood tests, keeping track of her cycle, and asking when I had time to get checked out a few months ago. Now, not a word, nothing. She started wearing bolder, brighter, tighter clothing instead of her typical soft neutrals, and she chopped her hair short and lighter at the ends. She had also been frequently staying late at work. Perhaps I'm overanalyzing, but I do remember typing. More pressure. New deadlines, and a new boss. ChatGPT responded almost too quickly. Your wife might be having an affair. I read that sentence 10 times while I gazed at the screen. After that, I closed the laptop, got up, went to the kitchen, and used my trembling hand to pour a glass of water. This picture of Alice and I grinning on the shores of Lake Michigan was on the refrigerator. Summer wrapped her arms around me as if we had the entire world worked out, her hair blowing in the wind. I muttered, "What the hell," as I looked at that picture. She spent 3 days out of town that week on a business trip to Seattle. I didn't say anything or text her. I sat there in the dark, gazing up at the ceiling as if a solution might suddenly appear. After an hour, I opened the laptop once more, typed, and gave an explanation. Why would you say that? Chat gave a cool, neutral response. You reported more time spent at work, a shift in behavior, a change in appearance, a greater distance, and a decline in interest in shared plans. These are typical signs of a third party present or emotional disengagement, though it's not proof, it's something to think about. I sat there looking at the cursor that was blinking. So you really believe she's cheating? I typed after that. I believe you believe she may be, you wouldn't have shared any of this with me otherwise. Something had changed when I shut down the laptop once more. The thoughts persisted. I went to her closet, opened drawers, and searched her makeup bag, but I couldn't find a clue. No hotel keys, no odd receipts, no lipstick smudges. It felt as though a thread had been pulled loose. Despite my best efforts to convince myself that I was being absurd, I had to make a choice because I was now unable to stop pulling at it. I had no intention of asking Alice any questions when she returned from her trip. I had no intention of confronting her, I simply intended to observe, discreetly and cautiously, to determine whether the woman entering through that door was still mine. Around 9 o'clock, I heard the door open and the sound of her key slightly protruding from the top lock. She entered with her phone in hand, a shoulder bag slung across her shoulder, and her suitcase dragging behind her. Her perfume, which she used to save for special occasions, instantly filled the hallway. She gave me a small smile as she looked at me. "I've returned home, how did the journey go?" I asked, sounding as though I was merely having a conversation. My chest, however, was already constricted. Everything went smoothly, to be honest, I'm tired. I had a terrible layover. What did you all do? Dinners, meetings, anything of interest? Presentations, one business lunch, and the usual. We all went out to dinner on Thursday night, and then we went to a bar, but I didn't stay long. It sounded prepared, as if she had rehearsed the line during the flight home. I simply nodded without saying anything. When she arrived home from work early the following day, she appeared to have been struck by a truck. Not simply exhausted, stressed, or destroyed. Her eyes were glazed and distracted, her hair disheveled, and her coat half-buttoned. For a moment, as if unsure of her location, she left her bag by the door and stood there. I slowly rose from the couch. Alice simply began to move past me in the direction of the hallway without responding. At that moment, I noticed a red streak across her cheek. Not something tiny, not a scratch from a tree limb. It was angry and raw. Then her hair, just above the temple, was thin, as if someone had pulled out a handful, and the bruises on both forearms were deep and finger-shaped. What the hell happened, Jesus and Alice? I rushed toward her. The fact is, she flinched. "I'm fine," she muttered, attempting to continue walking. "No, you're not." I moved ahead of her. "How did your face turn out?" "I'm all right, I told you." She spoke in an extremely flat tone. "I didn't hear anything from you. Have you been harmed?" With a sigh, she turned her head away. I went down. The office garage's stairs were damp. I tripped. Deadpan again, the office garage. In sneakers? She blinked for a moment at that. Sharper now, she pulled her arm away and said, "I don't want to talk about it. Is it okay if I just shower?" She avoided every reflective surface as if her own face were accusing her, and I watched her move down the hallway with her shoulders curled in. The bruises and the fear in her eyes couldn't be explained by that fall. It was a cover story. Alice said she had to go in for a few hours the following morning. "I won't be long, just paperwork and team lunch." She had a slight bruise on her cheek, and her jacket collar was pulled up when I looked at her. "Do you want me to give you a ride?" I inquired. Her smile was a bit too quick. "No need, I'm all right, are you certain?" "Sam, I can manage it." She gave me a quick peck on the cheek and left as if nothing had happened. I decided to follow her. All I wanted was for her to be safe. I wanted to know if she had been harmed. Even if she didn't ask, I wanted to be close enough in case she needed me. I waited in my parking space across from her office. An hour, then another. I initially felt foolish, even spooky. What the devil was I doing, hiding like a paranoid in my own car? However, I saw her right before I left. Tall, black-coated, nervous, with long chestnut hair that whips in the wind. She was going directly for our car and I saw it at that moment. She had a nail in her hand. At first, I didn't get it, then, slowly and furiously, she dragged it across the back fenders while crouching, the large white letters ripping into the paint. 403, Garden Tool. My blood froze. Hey, I yelled, already on the run. Why on earth are you doing this? Startled, she spun around and ran. I got into the car and chased after it. She weaved like a madwoman, blowing through 2 intersections. Screeching tires nearly clipped a mailbox. Without hesitation or blinking, I remained on her bumper. Once more, she pressed the gas. I jerked the wheel, cut across 2 lanes, and swerved hard. She slammed her brakes and blocked her dead center. I was already outside and didn't feel the door handle, so it was too late. I yanked it open without thinking, causing the frame to tremble. She let out a scream. Before she could move, I reached in and took her arm. What on earth is the matter with you? I yelled. What on earth are you? She twisted and yelled, let me go, but I held on. Who are you? Her chest heaved as she froze. I'm Diana, Jack's wife, she said, staring me in the eyes. I blinked. Alice's boss, Jack. She nodded, her voice steady but now trembling. Yes, exactly. In case you were unaware, your wife has been cheating on my husband for months. With my voice barely holding, I said, You serious? She didn't flinch. I told him to stop when I caught them in bed. It must end, I said. She gave one shake of her head. He vowed it was over, saying that was months ago. Her tone became resentful. After hearing about his trip to Seattle, I noticed that he had lipstick on his collar when he returned home. Classic, as if it were a bad joke. I'm going to file for divorce, she declared bluntly. In case you were wondering, I did indeed hit your wife. She stopped and gave me a direct look. I have no regrets. I just stood there without saying anything. All of a sudden, everything made sense. The bruises, the hair loss, the scratches, and the falsehood regarding the stairs. She was attacked, she did not fall. And not by a stranger, but by Diana, this woman. For what it's worth, I have pictures, messages, and proof, she continued. Not with me at the moment, though. Just to warn you. I'll show you, it's difficult to look at some of it. I went with her. A tiny house with a red mailbox at the driveway's edge, weeds were growing through the walkway's crevices, and the yard was overgrown. Oddly enough, I had previously seen pictures of Jack's place on business slides. It had all appeared flawless, like a catalog. She said nothing and let me in. No pleasantries, no small talk. Take a seat, she asked, already taking her tablet off the charger. You want coffee? Instead, I sat with my hands in my lap on the edge of the couch. She turned the tablet in my direction, opened her gallery, and tapped the screen a few times. A screenshot of messages is the first image. She responded, "You're a sinful girl," when he called her boss. I still remember that hotel couch from one of her books, then, a blurry image captured by a security camera outside the workplace. They met in person. Alice felt Jack's hand around her waist. The dress she had packed for Seattle was still on her. Then there was another parking lot shot. In the shadows between two cars, they were sharing a kiss. I spent weeks following them, Diana said in a tight voice. She believed me to be a fool, and he believed I was unaware. With pain behind her eyes, her mouth twitched, the irony. You trusted her, and I trusted him. Without uttering a word, I slowly nodded. I didn't have to. That screen had all the information I required. After a few seconds of silence, Diana suddenly became animated. She took a seat next to me and leaned in too closely, slightly above a whisper. She said, "I've been thinking, Sam. They destroyed our marriages and betrayed us. Perhaps they should feel the same way. At first, I didn't understand, but after she put her hand on my knee, I realized. Just think about it, Diana, she said, meeting my gaze. Just balance, no guilt, no strings attached. No, I retreated. No, that isn't how. She looked down and froze. I apologize, that was foolish, she said, her voice breaking. I'm so furious that I've lost all sense of who I am. I said. I'm angry too, but that won't help. They're not worth us losing ourselves for, not you or me. She straightened her posture, grabbed the throw blanket from the armrest, and wrapped it around herself. You're right, I feel embarrassed because lately, I haven't recognized myself. I knew who I was once. I said that they made us feel inadequate. To prove anything, however, we don't need to become worse versions of ourselves. Slowly, she nodded. For several more minutes, we sat in silence. She then led me to the exit. Did not touch me once more, she said, come by if you ever need to talk, just before I went outside. Not as a vengeful co-conspirator, but as a human being. I gave a nod. The same is true for you. I arrived home sooner than normal. Entered and took in the kitchen, the couch, and the framed picture on the shelf, the shore, the sun, her, me, and the shadow that now hung over everything. I entered the bedroom, went to her closet, took out a suitcase, and quickly began packing. Without hesitation, her underwear, chargers, makeup, and dresses, she kept that pile of work papers close to the bed. Even the blanket that she always used to wrap herself in on calm evenings. I took everything outside, placed it gently next to our mailbox on the grass. The one that was painted with our last name. I then lit a cigarette, sat on the front steps, and bided my time. About 20 minutes later, she pulled up, braked hard, and quickly got out while holding her keys. She froze when she saw the boxes and the suitcase. What is this, Sam? Calm and steady, I looked up from the stairs and met her eyes. Tell me, I replied. Perhaps begin by describing the words that were scratched onto your vehicle. Garden tool, 403, large letters, nail, and back fender. She winced and turned her head as if she hadn't noticed it yet. She tried after opening and closing her mouth. Some children are involved. In fact, a few vehicles in the office parking lot were keyed. Police believe it to be local teenagers. I submitted a report, Alice, I interrupted her in a low voice. I wasn't upset, I was just finished. I am aware that she became absolutely motionless. What precisely are you aware of? She didn't move, and I am aware of you and Jack, the office, Seattle, the hands, the kisses, the lies. Then, at last, she looked away. She whispered, it's not what you think. That wasn't the case. I'm not in the mood for theater, so don't make fun of me. There was a pause as her shoulders curved forward, and then he subtly pushed me. I remained silent, her voice cracked as she looked up. He said that he would ruin me if I didn't comply, Sam. According to my name and resume, no serious company would ever hire me again because I'm difficult, unstable, and not a team player. You slept with him, then? Without being dramatic or phony, she nodded slowly before breaking. She sobbed deeply, her arms embracing her ribs as she huddled in on herself like a baby. Sam, I was afraid and unsure of what to do. I swear, I hate myself and I hate him. I couldn't tell you, but it was only once. The idea of you staring at me that way was unbearable to me. I looked, really looked, but I had no idea how I felt. I finally said, I don't know, Alice. I'm not sure if I trust you. Allow me to explain, just give me a moment to speak. I sat silently for a while before letting out a breath. Don't touch me, but come in, we're done if I get the slightest impression that you're lying again. With wide, broken eyes, she nodded and muttered, thank you. Naturally, I wasn't going to simply let it go. I needed to talk to Alice's boss immediately if she had been honest with me about being forced into eye contact. I hopped in the car, knew where he lived, and was there in 30 minutes with the garage door open and a black Tesla parked in the driveway. Jack was bent over a workstation, tinkering with a bicycle, most likely for his child. I exited and approached in silence and composure. Jack paused for a half-second after turning and seeing me. "Am I able to assist you?" In fact, he smiled as if I were just dropping by for coffee, composed and courteous. "Are you really asking me that? You jerk. You blackmailed my wife, Alice." With my fists clenched tightly, I took a step closer. "Put pressure on her to have sex with you and threatened her career, isn't that what took place?" And he scoffed, scoffing. "You mean Sam? Her husband? Let me tell you something, we were both adults. But she came to me," he said, lowering his voice as if he were being helpful. "I didn't start it, she did. Every time you texted her that dinner was ready, sweetie, she would laugh uncontrollably. He cocked his head. She showed me your messages, which she found endearing despite their pathetic nature. Keep your mouth shut. I don't know, perhaps you simply couldn't make her happy. I just know that she was simple. Do you understand? Sam, it's easy." I struck him squarely in the jaw. He collided with the car's hood. I repeatedly struck him as he attempted to stand. We were unraveling, not even fighting. "You're crazy," he screamed, covering his face. "Do you hear me? I'll file charges. I heard the siren close, and I'll ruin you." It must have been called in by some neighbor. I didn't look back as I turned, ran, got into the car, and drove away. Everything was drowned out by the loud pounding of my heart. My hands were trembling, but my thoughts were blank. I was at a loss for whom to trust. Alice sobbed and vowed that he had broken her. "It was all her," Jack said, laughing. Who the devil had I been living with for all these years if even half of what he said was accurate? I picked up my phone and sent Brendan a text. I urgently need access to her complete history of business messages on Slack, Teams, Zoom, and other platforms. Back when we were students, I had a guy who everyone called Brendan IT, sharp and quiet. He entered the field of cybersecurity. We met at his house, and he didn't ask any questions. 2 monitors, a dimly lit apartment, and energy drinks piled high like awards. I gave up everything I owned. Alice's old laptop, her corporate login that is still active, and her email access. "If there's anything on here, I'll find it," Brendan said, turning everything on. "Are you certain you're prepared, though?" I gave a nod. He sent me a zip folder with one file named flirt_start.mp for a few hours later. Clicking through messages, highlighting dates, Slack, November, and no audio, just a screen capture. "When's your next magical presentation, Alice? Tell me, boss. I'll bring some popcorn, only if you swear not to throw it at me, Jack." "What if I just throw looks instead, Alice?" Next, December Teams. "Without your sarcasm, Alice, I feel so powerless. Perhaps you could teach me how to survive on my own. Collaborating with all of these men." "Yes, Jack, it is a jungle here. You're the alpha, Alice." January Zoom chat follows. "We should be talking about these charts without clothes and over wine, Alice." "That sounds risky, Jack. I always play dangerous, Alice." My hands were shaking from the weight of it, not from anger, but from the thing that killed something inside of me. "Do we really need separate rooms just before the trip to Seattle?" A little adult team building is something I wouldn't mind trying. I reclined in the seat. The room's air felt thick and heavy. She wasn't scared, confused, or a victim. She was in charge. She planned every action and every word. I shut down the laptop and sat quietly. After that, I grabbed my phone and dialed Brendan. I said, "Thanks, I know the truth now." He hesitated, then mutely, "I'm sorry, but this is the reality." I hung up without saying anything. Nothing was left over after that. She always threw her jacket on the coat rack, so I had waited for her by the door. She barely had time to remove her shoes before entering. She froze mid-step when she saw me. I said bluntly, "I want a divorce." "You've packed your belongings and left my house." "No, wait, Sam, With her hands half up as if she might grab me, she took a step in my direction. "We can fix this, but don't touch me. We've experienced too much, I will not abandon us. I'm not yours to discard so easily." "You went too far," I said steadily, "we are no longer here." She remained silent for a few seconds before walking away. I didn't immediately close the door. The sound of her footsteps fading down the stairs was all I could do as I stood there. After 2 days, I was nearly breathing once more. Then Brendan texted me at 10:17 p.m., "There's something else, Sam. Pay attention." I can't keep it to myself, but I wasn't sure if I should send it. She sent it via email, "I believe you should be informed." The following morning, we got together at a coffee shop. No bullshit, no small talk. Bringing his laptop, he checked her email, which was still open. Buried behind her primary inbox was a private folder that he had discovered. "You had to dig for it to see it," he said. 3 emails from a private women's clinic were included. Verification of appointment and test results before termination. "We appreciate your trust and wish you a speedy recovery," dated November of last year. I whispered that she ended the pregnancy at the precise moment we were discussing starting a family, when she was asking me to schedule blood work and taking prenatal vitamins. I hardly got the words out of my mouth. Brendan nodded cautiously and slowly. She had destroyed not only a future but also the memory of our desire for one. I was by myself now, but at least I knew the truth. Alice's car was parked outside, with the same license plate and den on the back bumper. And I discovered that she was staying with her sister, May D. I knocked. She herself answered the door. She held a cup of tea and was dressed in a robe. No performance, no makeup. She just looked at me for a moment, as if she was having trouble believing it was real, then the hopeful, desperate half-smile appeared. "You came to speak." "I did say that, but not for the reason you believe." I entered without waiting for her to extend an invitation. She retreated instinctively, as if she had done it 1,000 times. "What's happening?" she inquired. I didn't remove my coat or sit down. "When did you intend to inform me that your pregnancy was over?" The silence fell heavily. Sitting on a couch. May D and her husband Danny listened to everything. "I repeated what I had asked you," she muttered. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Alice, don't play with me." My voice had become sharp and trembled at the edges. I saw all of the clinic's emails, the date, the appointment, the test results, and more. Her hands began to shake, and it appeared as though her blood had gone cold. I believed we were on the same page when we dreamed of having a child. I realized that I couldn't finish that sentence and had to stop. "And you simply threw it away." Her eyes began to well up with tears. She was unable to gaze at me. "Why?" I yelled. Then she lost her temper, "Since it wasn't yours." That word struck like a fist of silence. My voice fell to a roar as I stepped forward. "Whose?" The air felt like lead pressing down on everything, so she didn't respond. "Who was it that?" I tried again, lower now, almost calm. She averted her gaze, her shoulders trembling. All she said was, "It doesn't matter anymore." I walked out the door after turning around. She made no attempt to stop me, and the room fell silent like smoke. May D exhaled deeply and got to his feet. "Just sit," she said evenly, "and I'll make you some soothing tea." She left and headed for the kitchen. Her husband, Danny, had not moved from his seat on a couch. His eyes were heavy and unmoving. Alice curled up on the edge of the couch and gazed at the floor. Danny approached cautiously. He spoke softly, as if he was worried that the walls might overhear him. "Is it accurate?" She didn't respond. "Alice, respond to me," his voice broke. "Was it mine, that baby?" Her eyes were hollow and wet as she slowly raised her head. There were doubts, but I wasn't sure, she muttered. Danny buried his face in both hands and closed his eyes. "Jesus Christ, I didn't intend for it to occur, Alice. We were just alone, and I didn't plan any of this." "You claimed to be lost. Did you choose to crawl into your sister's husband's bed while May D was at the conference?" From the doorway of the kitchen came the voice. They both turned to see Maidee standing there. The teacup had broken on the floor after slipping out of her grasp. Her voice was icy, and her eyes were vacant. "You had an affair with my husband." She yelled, "Maidee, don't say my name," and started to move in Alice's direction. "How often? How many?" "I promised that it came to an end." Maidee turned to Danny and said, "I didn't want to hurt you." "How about you?" "You also didn't want to, Maidee." We were perplexed and it was an error. She nodded once, and I had no idea what I was doing. "You two are out, what?" Alice suffocated. "Both of you pack your bags and leave my house and my life." Reaching for her sister's hand, Alice fell to her knees. "Please, Maidee, you are no longer my sister." Turning, Maidee went upstairs. That frozen calm, no tears, Alice and Danny were left silent in the living room. Alice continued to try to conceal the truth despite everything that had exploded in that house, including the pregnancy and the betrayal. I was done being silent, so I went straight to legal. I filed for divorce first. Infidelity is a legitimate legal basis in the state of New York. I wasn't going through it passively this time. I wanted every detail, message, lie, and fact to be shown to the court. Marla Reed, my lawyer, was extremely astute. Seasoned, older, and has no patience for drama, the type of woman who made defense teams perspire and frighten judges. She asked for documents without asking if I was in pain. I provided her with all of the information, including the timeline, hotel dates, message threads, and abortion records. Alice's own sister, Maidee, even signed a statement attesting to her betrayal of her entire family, including me. One of the main points raised by Marla was the end of the pregnancy. She said, looking through documents, that she made a reproductive decision that probably covered up a second act of infidelity in addition to excluding you. That is actionable deception, not just moral failure. From there, we developed our argument. I filed a separate civil suit while we were preparing the divorce claim. It was for Jack. Conflict of interest, misuse of power, and misuse of position. He wasn't just a stranger, her boss was him. She was directly supervised by the man who authorized her raise and assigned her travel. Marla took great care in crafting the wording. As Alice Miller's direct manager, Mr. Dempsey developed a continuing relationship with a subordinate employee while also promoting her status in ways that implied preferential treatment and exerted influence. The papers were served. The business noticed, an HR representative attended the hearing. Jack, smug as ever, did the same. He acknowledged that I was her boss when questioned. We were involved, yes. That was sufficient in and of itself. The business promptly reopened its internal investigation. Jack attempted to portray it as reciprocal. Two adults who consented, he said. However, romance is irrelevant to HR language, liability is important to them. And I noticed that the room had changed. The way his own co-workers turned their heads, the one I wrote myself, however, was the most difficult. I filed a lawsuit. I wrote the statement over and over again. Sentences were reworded and words crossed out. Additionally, it wasn't practiced when I appeared in court. I just said something. I said, "Your Honor, this woman knew everything. She was aware of my experiences. I told her about my father's betrayal, and she held me. She witnessed my tears. After that, she went and followed suit, without hesitation, without regret, with complete awareness. I didn't speak louder. I didn't have to. She ended a pregnancy without informing me of it. And the child probably wasn't mine based on what I now know. I never would have heard from her. She set a foundation on fire and allowed me to build dreams on it." The judge paid close attention without interjecting. "The court finds sufficient cause to proceed," she said after giving one nod. "A jury will be asked to decide this case." This was no longer about retaliation. It had to do with volume, allowing the truth to speak loudly. Not in the back rooms in whispers. Apologies do not soften. It wasn't hidden behind expressions like, "It was a mistake. I had no intention of ruining her." All I wanted was for the lies to quit acting like they were smaller than they actually were. The following month was set aside for the trial. Marla did not recoil. She had everything ready, the signed affidavits, the corporate logs, the witnesses, and the timeline. She cautioned me that emotional suffering is not always rewarded by juries. However, I wasn't looking for pity. Without any euphemisms or filters, I wanted the truth to be revealed. On the day of my court appearance, I stood there and spoke my mind. Just facts, no drama. I described to them how Alice helped me feel better when I had panic attacks. How she promised that we were creating something together while looking me in the eye. And how she was living a double life the entire time. Calm and composed, Mady took the stand. She attested to the treachery of her sister. 2 families were split apart by the affair, the lies, and the secrecy. She made no hesitations. Alice then said something. She claimed that Jack had deceived her and that she appeared small and hollow, that it had been a mistake, that she felt stuck. However, everyone in the room was spared guesswork when Marla revealed the internal messages. The jurors themselves read it, Alice's tone, jokes, initiation, flirtation, and selfies. By referring to it as a consensual relationship, Jack attempted to act like a gentleman. HR, however, didn't buy it. Under oath, the director acknowledged that Jack had a private relationship with a direct subordinate, which was against workplace policy. They'd already put him on leave. His dismissal was still pending. I received a formal apology from the company. Sanitized legalese. But I didn't give a damn. The jury spent 2 days deliberating. They returned with a decision that favored me. Alice was convicted of purposefully causing emotional distress. Not because I requested it, but because the jury thought her actions were significant. The court granted me $135,000. Alice quit a week later. No exit meetings, no emails. As if she had never been there, her name vanished from the company's website. Days later, Jack lost his job. Both of them disappeared. I took the dog, packed the things I wanted, donated the things I didn't, sold the house, and left everything else. I don't feel empty in my new apartment's silence. It has the consistency of oxygen. Her defeat meant that I didn't win. Since I finally spoke the truth, I prevailed.